I'm making another reference video for myself to record my progress in learning how to do bobbin lace. We're right in the middle of the stay-at-home orders from the Louisiana governor, and we have to stay at home until April the 12th. Today is the 29th of March, so I pray that this will all be over soon. But meanwhile, it's a good time for me to do some recordings and to kill some time learning new techniques. So today I'm using the Lisbeth size 20 thread, and the spacing on my pattern is, I believe it's 6 millimeters between the pins on this outside edge in this torsion ground area. In the cloth stitch area, it's about 3 millimeters apart, and I find this a little dense for the type of thread that I'm using, but this is just a practice piece, and so I want to show how to do the foot side on each side of a project, how to do this little slope here and a 8-legged spider, and how to come down to a point. I've enlarged my pattern so I can show you where I am throughout. At the top row of my pattern I have 10 pinholes, and there's a couple of them that are close together there, and that's because we're going to be doing a foot side. So the first and last pin is going to have 2 pairs hung on those, and the rest of them are going to have just 1 pair hung on there to begin with. I've prepared 12 pairs of bobbins. 3 pairs are my workers, and the others are going to be just the passive pairs. I put a little bit of extra thread on my workers because the cloth stitch area takes up quite a bit of the thread on the working workers or the workers, and so you want to have a little bit of extra on that. I put, I think, 3 yards on each of these 3 pairs, and I put 2 yards on the other 9 pairs. Next, we're going to hang our working pairs. The first one I'm going to hang on the first pin to the left. Then I'm going to hang a pair on the second pin. And make sure you're only grabbing 1 pin because these are really close together. And then I'm going to hang my third working pair on the last pin on the right. Then I'm going to take a passive pair. I'm going to hang it on the same pin as the first pair to the right of my working pair. And that's called hanging pairs in order. There'll be times in patterns where they'll tell you to hang your pairs open, but in this instance we're just hanging them in order side by side. Then I'm going to take another passive pair and double up on that last pin to the right. We're going to be doubling up over here, but this time I'm placing the passive pair to the left of my worker pair. So I have 2 passive pairs and then 3 worker pairs. Now we can just move these out of the way. I have a pin stuck into my pillow on the side here so that I can keep my bobbins from falling off the side. And now I need to fill up the rest of these pins with the remaining bobbins. I want to show some reference books that I found very useful. This one is called Threads for Lace, and it gives you an idea what threads you can use and how much spacing you need in your graph paper when you're designing patterns, how far apart to put the dots. So it's a really good book. And this other one, I haven't really started on this one yet. I've just kind of read through it. It's the Bobbin Lace Manual, and there's some really nice patterns in there, and she takes you from very simple patterns all the way through to complicated ones. And this one was the first book I bought, and it was very helpful because in this one also you start with very simple and you start moving upwards. Now I haven't gone very far in the book, so as I mentioned before, I'm just kind of recording my progress. When I learn a new technique, then I'll work up a little pattern to show each new technique that I learn. But this one's a really good book. So I've got all my bobbins hung and ready to go, and so we're going to start with the foot side to begin with. Okay, the terminology that I'm going to be using is a cross is always left over right, a twist is always right over left, a whole stitch is a cross, twist 2 pairs at a time, and cross. And usually I'll just say cross, twist, cross, but you'll see me moving 2 pairs at a time. The half stitch is just a cross, twist 2 pairs. The whole stitch, you add an extra twist to both the pairs at the end. So it's a whole stitch and twist is what we call it. So you'll do the whole stitch and then you'll add an extra twist two pairs at the end. And it's actually equal to 2 half stitches. We'll say cloth stitch and whole stitch interchangeably. So sometimes we'll say whole stitch and twist, and sometimes we'll say cloth and twist. So there's others that call this one the double stitch and things like that, but this is the terminology that I'm going to stick with. We're going to be starting with the foot side pin. All of these pins on the side all the way down, those are all foot sides until we start the slope at the bottom. Right here is where the last foot side is going to be, and also on this side. So in this case we have foot sides on both sides. There'll be sometimes when you're making lace that you'll have a foot side only on one side and you'll have something else on the other. So a foot side, what it is a really firm edge with some sort of a stitch sequence that makes it able to sew onto another project. I've seen some really fancy foot sides where the columns of stitches down here could be a cloth stitch, or it could be some other design element along the edge. So that's really all a foot side is. So we need 3 pairs of bobbins for the foot side. So I'm going to set aside three sets of bobbins on the left hand side, and then I want to set these 2 pairs on the right hand side. Those are going to be the foot side pairs for the right hand edge. So I'm going to set those aside and put a marker to remind me to stop when I get here. So to start the foot side, I'm going to use these 3 pairs. These 2 are workers. This is our passive worker, this is a passive pair, and this is the working worker. When you're looking at the foot side, the working worker is always the 3rd pair in from the edge. So that's 1, 2, 3. The first step in doing the foot side is to make sure the working worker, which is the 3rd pair from the outside edge, make sure that working worker has a twist. So remember, a twist is right over left. So here's my working worker. So I'm going to make 1 twist. See, there's no twist in the thread at all up there. So I'm going to do 1 twist right over left. So now it's ready to do its work. Okay, get in the habit of looking at your thread up here rather than watching your bobbins. When I was learning, I only watched the bobbins, and I had no idea what was going on up here. But every time you do a new stitch or a new sequence, look at how the pairs are twisted and what they look like, so that when you're in the future you won't have to worry about where your pairs are. You'll be watching your stitches to look for mistakes. Next we need to do a whole stitch and twist through the 2nd and 3rd pairs from the outside edge. So we're going to be using these 2. This is my working worker, and I'm going to do a whole stitch and twist. Cross, twist both pairs, cross, twist both pairs. And then the next step, we're going to take this working worker all the way over and it's going to be a hole stitch and twist again. We're going to be using hole stitch and twist throughout the foot side. So now I need to use my working worker with this worker pair. Cross, twist, cross, twist. And now my working worker has made it all the way to the outside edge. So the next step is to place the pin, and we're going to go ahead and place the pin between these two right here, not in between these two. We're going to be placing the pin in between these two, and then we're going to add an extra twist to that outside pair. Usually I do that first, even though I have it last on my instructions here, but usually as soon as my working worker gets to the side, I'll go ahead and put an extra twist on it. And so now I need to cover the pin with a hole stitch and twist. So there's 3 times that you have to do a hole stitch and twist. So now this is going to be my new working worker. Cross, twist, cross, twist. Now these 2 pairs are going to rest here on the side for a while. And now my new working worker is going to work all the way through these pairs doing the cloth stitch or the hole stitch. The pin we just placed is this first foot side pin. Okay, now I'm going to start my hole stitch, cloth stitch across all of these bobbins. So we're working with 2 pairs at a time doing the hole stitch, and it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to cross and then twist these 2 pairs and then cross. That's the hole stitch, and then we're just going to kind of tension that a little bit up there. Don't pull too tightly. Pull in a new pair, cross, twist, cross. New pair, cross, twist, cross. I'm working all the way over to the next foot side. Cross, twist, cross. Still using the same worker. Cross, twist, cross. Cross, twist, cross. Cross, twist, cross. And now my working worker has made it to the point where it's time to do another foot side. Okay, we're going to go through the foot side sequence again. So I need 3 pairs to do the foot side sequence. This is pair number 1, 2, and 3. This is my working worker. There is no twist in the thread because we've been doing the cloth stitch, and the nature of the cloth stitch does not leave any twist behind. I need a twist in my working worker. That's step number 1, so I'm going to put a twist. Then I'm going to work a hole stitch and twist with this pair. Cross, twist, cross, twist. And then with this pair. Cross, twist, cross, twist. I'm going to put an extra twist in my working worker, and it's going to rest. It's no longer the working worker. I'm going to take and put a pin between these 2 pairs in the next pinhole. And I'm going to cover the pin with a hole stitch and twist. Cross, twist, cross, twist. And that completes the foot side. The hole that we just finished is this foot side. So we're going to work back and forth in the cloth stitch until we get to this point here, and that's going to be the last foot side that pertains to the cloth stitch area. And then we're going to start finishing. We're going to finish one section at a time. Whenever you have a design element like cloth stitch or torsion ground, you should always complete one section at a time. And we're going to continue to this point right here, and after I do this foot side, we'll join back up. But I want to work back to the left one more time and repeat the foot side one more time. Alright, so now this is my working worker. The old working worker is now resting on the side. And so I'm going to check my twist. I want to make sure there's no twist. I get in the habit of checking the twist to make sure that the twist is there if I want it to be, or not there if I don't want it to be. If I saw a twist in this one, I would take it out because I don't want it. There is a twist left in this pair because we just completed the foot side, and I'm going to leave that twist in there. So I'm going to start my cloth stitch now. It's going to be a whole stitch. Cross, twist, cross. So now my working worker is working that way. Whole stitch. And see, there's no more twist in here now. Cross, twist, cross. Cross, twist, cross. Cross, twist, cross. And I can see some little lumps and bumps, and you kind of watch for that at the beginning or throughout and make sure you're straightening things out. Alright, that was my last whole stitch because I have a marker marking the next foot side. So I'm going to check for twist. My working worker needs a twist to start the foot side. These other two still have a twist in them from the last foot side. This one actually has two twists because we put an extra twist on it. So I've checked my twist, I've added a twist to my working worker. I'm going to do a whole stitch and twist, cross, twist, cross, twist. Another whole stitch and twist, cross, twist, cross, twist. Extra twist. And tension that up, set that pair aside, and place a pin in the next foot side pinhole. And then we're going to cover the pin with a whole stitch and twist. Cross, twist, cross, twist. Now we're finished with the foot side. And we have just completed this foot side. So continue back and forth if you have to rewind the video to refer how to do the foot side. Continue back and forth in cloth stitch, doing a foot side on both sides of your work. And we'll come back when we get to that point right there. Okay, that was a lot of cloth stitch to do, but you're getting a lot of practice in doing the whole stitch and the foot side. I have just covered this pin right here, and I'm going to work across to the left side and do a foot side here, and then I'm going to work over to the pin that we need, or the bobbins that we need to decrease. Alright, so here's where I covered the pin. I'm finished with these two for now. I'm going to work in cloth stitch back to the left side. It's pretty dense in that area because of the thickness of the thread that I'm using, but it's really good practice. And you want it dense if you're doing a bookmark. So I'm still doing the whole stitch. Cross, twist, cross. Now I'm at the left side, foot side, so I'm going to put in a twist. And then I'm going to do a whole stitch and twist. And a whole stitch and twist, and then an extra twist, Then I'm going to put up a pin and cover the pin. So now I need to work back over to the right, but we won't be doing any foot sides on the right hand side for a while. So I just finished this pin, and I'm going to work toward this first one that's going downhill down this slope. The foot sides are going to stay inactive for a while because we're going to pick those back up when we do this section right here. So when I'm knitting or crocheting, I usually wait and decrease when I get to the stitch. You can choose to go ahead and decrease before you get there or not, but for now I'm just going to mark off my 2 foot side pairs that I'm not going to be using because we won't be doing the foot side. So let me work in whole stitch across to the other side. Make sure I didn't put an extra twist in there. So the next pin I'm working toward is that one right there. All right. Okay, so I've worked through the pair that is just before the foot side. I'm going to leave my marker there, and normally when I'm coming back this way I would go ahead and move this one out, but as I said, when I'm going to move it out of the way as I get to it. So it's time to put up a pin, so I'm going to twist this last pair twice. Again, we're not doing a foot side on this side, so I'm going to put up a pin in the first pinhole going down the slope. And that is this pin right here. Alright, so we're going to continue in whole stitch back to the left foot side, which starts right there. Now this worker has to double back. Normally I would have worked this worker all the way through the foot side, and then I would have a new working worker coming back. But since we're not doing the foot side, this working worker has to go back to the left hand side. Okay, so I've reached the foot side on that side. I'm going to put my twist in. And that's a whole stitch and twist. Whole stitch and twist. Extra twist. Put in a pin. Earlier I had missed one of my pinholes, and I knew that my cloth stitch wasn't going in the direction I wanted it to. It just looked weird to me, and I ended up having to carefully move my pins up to fill in the hole that I had missed. So try to be careful with that. I don't want to get in the way of the camera, or I'd be working a little bit closer to it. But when your pinholes are close together, it's very easy to miss one. So I need to cover my pin, with a whole stitch and twist, and then work back to the right, and we're going to decrease one more time. Or we haven't decreased yet, but earlier I had mentioned that you can go ahead and take this out of the way just to remind you not to use it, or you can wait till you get to it. So I'm just going to wait. I still have my marker to remind me about the foot side. So I'm back in whole stitch again. And I'm doing this kind of messy, but trying to get back over there quickly. And I want to decrease this one. Once I've gotten to the one that's before my marker, I'm going to get rid of it. And then I want to put 2 twists on this outside pair, which is my worker, and put up a pin in the next. I'm going between these 2 pairs. I'm going to choose the next pinhole that's going downhill, and then continue in whole stitch back to the left hand side. So what I'm going to do is continue back to the left hand side and do foot sides all along this edge, all along here, and then work back and forth. And when you get to the pin on this side, be sure you decrease 1 pair, whether you do it before you work the row or after, or wait until you get there. Either way, you're going to have to get rid of 1 pair of bobbins every time you get to the right hand side. And then when you get here, put a 2 twist or an extra twist, 2 twist on that outside bobbin before you put the pin in, and then you round the corner and go back and do a foot side over here. So let me say that again. Work to the left, do a foot side. Work to the right, decrease 1 pair of bobbins, double twist, and then go back and do a foot side. And continue, and we'll come back together when I get close to the end of this point right here. Okay, I just finished this foot side pin right here. And I have 2 more on this side to do for the left side, and then I'm going across to that pin there. So we'll finish out the point together. So here is where I covered my pin. So I'm going to do a whole stitch. And I need to get rid of this pair. Twist twice, place a pin. Try to lean in there and find that pinhole. And then work and cloth stitch back to the left. Now it's time for another foot side. So I'm adding my twist, a whole stitch and twist, whole stitch and twist, and an extra twist. Place my pin on that foot side. Work my way back to the right in, wait, I got my pin in the wrong place. I still need to cover that pin. That's a mistake I do all the time. So I need to cover the pin, whole stitch and twist, and then work back and cloth stitch. And then we need to get rid of this pair, put 2 twists in, place a pin in that next hole. I'll show you where we are. I just did this one right there. Now I'm going to work back and cloth stitch. And it's time to do the last foot side. So I put my twist in, cross, twist, and then an extra twist, and place that last pin. And we're not going to cover the last pin. excuse me, we are going to cover the last pin. I'm sorry, we have to finish that foot side cross, twist, cross, twist. All right, now we're done with the complete cloth stitch area. All of this area has all been done up here.